Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. My name is Janet McMorty. I'm your host, and I was and still very much am a medical doctor simultaneously pursuing a career in acting. This is episode number 9, and it's another industry episode. I am so excited for my guest this week. It is the one, the only, the greatest of all time in my humble opinion, Helen Tansey. Helen Tansey is one of Toronto's top headshot photographers. She has taken all of my headshots and the shots for this podcast. She is incredible. Now, my logical type A personality research-loving brain did a ton of research into who should do my headshots in the Toronto market. And as actors, we get advice, good and bad, but mostly well-intentioned, from tons of different people regarding who should take your headshots. And we go into this a lot in this episode, but honestly, find someone that you're comfortable with. Interview them and find someone that you're comfortable with. Ignore what everyone says, and I don't know if this is the best advice, but whatever. Ignore what everyone says. Find the person you're most comfortable with, because that is who will produce the best headshots for you, and you will produce the best headshots for you. And that person, for me, and many, many others, is the incredible Helen Tansey. Try not to get emotional during this interview because she's the best. She's incredible. She makes me feel so comfortable and so confident with myself. I mean, the minute I walked into her studio, and we've developed a really, really treasured friendship from it. We go into a lot of interesting things in this interview. I'm excited for you to hear it. She's a practicing Buddhist, and so we talk a lot about, again, not only headshot tips and stuff like that for actors, but also thoughts about her thoughts on aging in the industry, especially as women, her thoughts about ego, my thoughts about ego, especially as women. So we do a deep dive into a lot of really interesting things. I'm really excited for you to hear it. Please enjoy the incredible Helen Tansey. Up here right now, yeah. And I just I can't that's too cold. I can't do that.
It hurts.
It hurts both like in my soul and in my extremities.
I went out, I took my dog Harvey out,
yeah,
and I wear contact lenses, and they froze. They started freezing to my eyeballs, and I'm like, what's going on? Like, I couldn't blink, and it was like, and I got in, it was like water started coming out of my eyes. So I guess the contacts with the coat, it's very weird.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I've had eyelashes freeze before, and hair, like wet hair,
yes,
but never contacts. Holy jumping. Okay, good to know. Yep, I think that is, means the cold is incompatible with life. You know, like it is too cold.
Yes.
So I'm so happy to have you as part of this kind of offshoot episodes. I'm chatting with people within the entertainment industry, people who've been supportive of both myself and just other actors who've decided to go into this industry, crazy industry, later on in life and kind of after their first act, as I'm calling it, first career. Yeah. So tell me how you got into this industry. How did you become a photographer?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And I love that you're doing this. I think it's so important in anything that we do that we have community. Yeah. And I think that you're creating this space for actors to sort of help support one another, I think is really important. So I think it's amazing that you're doing this, first of all.
Thanks,
yeah. And then I got into it. I was a model, and when I was modeling in Europe, I was always so much more interested in what the photographers were doing. So after shoots, I would always ask them if I could stay and help them process the film, or they would call out, they'd be go, okay, F8, 100, ISO, and I'd be like, what is that? What are you talking about? And it just fascinated me. So I left Europe. I came back. My brother got ill. My brother passed away, and it kind of changed my trajectory in my life. Mm-hmm. And I was a little bit lost. I was just sort of, bartending and working. And then I started working for a photographer as his, just sort of booking his appointments, dealing with clients. And he sort of taught me a little bit more about photography. And I had a lot of friends that were actors, so I would take photos of them and sort of experiment on them. And then somebody approached me who owned a lab, and they said, your work is really good. I've seen some of it. Would you be interested if I were to help you co-sign a loan. Would you be interested in, opening up your own studio? And I knew this person too. He was a friend. And I said yes. And that was it. And it was like the doors just kept opening.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And what do you think it was? Well, I guess you kind of answered the question already, right? Like, you're so interested as a model, interested in what's going on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
But was there some time in your life that said, okay, it's time to flip from modeling to this career? Or was it just kind of a gradual progression?
I think, when I modeled, I never liked it. I didn't want to do modeling. I got discovered and everybody was like, you're crazy if you don't do this. I don't know if I was very good at it either, because modeling, as you know, with acting, it's not just about looking, it's like an attitude. Mm-hmm. And in Europe, like, girls would walk in the room and they were like, this is mine. Like, they had this confidence. And I'm like the nice Canadian girl. Hi, how are you? I mean, I loved it because I got to travel. I got to say I was a model in Europe, which was pretty cool. And I believe that it led me to what it did do is that I know what it's like to be behind the lens. I know that nervous energy. I know how uncomfortable it is. And I worked with photographers that would make me feel so at ease. And then I worked with photographers that were not that nice, right? It made you feel horrible and you left sessions almost in tears.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's all a learning. So I think, when you get to that point in your life where you look back and you kind of see that you've been on this course, you don't really realize it. And then everything kind of lines up and makes sense. Mm-hmm. So even as a kid in my room, when I would play make believe, I pretended I was a photographer. So I kind of feel like this is something that was always meant for me.
Oh, that's awesome. It's funny. One of my questions that I like to ask people is, what did you want to be when you grew up? Like, when you were a kid. Yeah, that's so funny that you did that. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And so you've shot actors and writers and everyone under the sun. Phenomenal career that you've had. Mm-hmm. For people who come into this, like you were saying, who've never done this before, never been in front of the camera, how do you put actors and people like that at ease? Like, what's the trick?
So I think, when you photograph, like, I try just to be who I am. Like, I just try to be kind and patient with people. Mm-hmm. And I understand, like, I mean, I think it's a lot. First of all, it's a huge investment for actors, right? So there's that nervousness there of like, okay, I'm putting money into this. What I always think is a great thing when people are choosing a photographer, if they can, even like what I've been doing, through COVID, is even just having Zoom meetings with people to talk to them, just to sort of put their mind at ease, or ask me as many questions as you want. So anything I think that I can do to help prepare you before you come in the room is a good thing, like from like what to bring for clothes, what to expect, how long it lasts, all that sort of stuff. And then when you come in, I mean, I hope it's just fun, right? We talk and and it's not really something that I do. It's not a formula. It's just, I think my personality works well with the sort of work that I do, because I love people. I love talking. I love listening. I love learning. And, like, I know when we photograph, like, you live in Aurelia and you're a doctor and all this sort of stuff. And I actually genuinely am interested in what people do.
Mm-hmm. And I think that was the biggest surprise for me, having never done headshots before. When I met you, was during our shoot, I was expecting the Sears catalog, Sears photo booth, right? Like, sit, pose, right? Sit, pose. Yeah. Now do this. Now look like you're a detective cop. Now look like you're a happy commercial actress. Yeah. Where with you, it was just keep chatting, and you just go, and what you get out of people is incredible. And I think that's really unique to you. I mean, I have very minimal experience with photographers, but
right.
I think just hearing from people, other actors who shot with you and with other photographers, I think that's very unique. And like you're saying, it gets people so relaxed and natural.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
And it's fun.
And it is fun.
So fun.
It is fun. Yeah.
So you've it sounds like you've been a creative person your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest things I've heard from people who are creatives who did one job and then switched to another is that the biggest kicker for that was burnout, was lack of creativity in their first job. Burnout, nothing's really lighting their fire. For somebody like you who's been very creative their whole life, basically, what do you do, say on a morning you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't feel like being creative today? Is there something that you do that helps light that fire, that keeps you interested in people?
I think that that's a good question. I think that sometimes, I mean, I have my practice, I'm a practicing Buddhist, so I wake up every morning and I do my meditations and everything. So I think that grounds me. And I think I would say 80% of the time I love coming to work. I love what I do. The days that I don't are like, okay, just suck it up, and I do, and it shifts, right? And then once I sort of start, once I change my mindset, it changes everything, right? So, and that's the same thing the other way. Like sometimes you can start off think you're going to have a great day, and then all of a sudden you get a client or a rude phone call, and it just sets you off, right? Yeah. So it's just sort of that resetting and just, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
I don't know if I answered that well. Sorry.
Absolutely, you did.
Okay.
So I remember us chatting. You have, and so practical things that you've incorporated. I know when we were shooting before you, I know you meditate. You're a runner. Are those things that you do kind of on those days that you feel bleh and not?
Yeah, I mean, I run every day. I mean, I run a lot, and I meditate every day. Like that is non-negotiable for me, my morning practice. Like for example, this morning my husband said, oh, can I just talk to you about something? And I said, I can after I do my practice. Like I carve out that time for me. And I think like anything, like sometimes we just have days where maybe we don't feel creative, or maybe we're just not feeling good, especially with COVID. I think a lot of us, it's really hard to get motivated. We've kind of lost our steam. But I just sort of accept that and just work through it, and there's little things that I do, like to your listeners, it's going to sound, but I feel like sometimes if I feel stuck in my energy, I sage my studio, like I cleanse it, you know what I mean? Or, like you were saying, going for a run, or I call a friend and go, okay, you know what? I'm not in a good headspace. And, you work through it. So there's lots of little things you can do. But honestly, there's not, at this stage in my life, there's not a lot of stuff that really sort of takes me down for the count. So every now and then I might sort of have sad moments. But for the most part, I feel pretty grounded in my life.
Yeah, yeah. Meditation is something that I had never thought of before I started acting. It got introduced to me. Yeah, it got introduced to me by an acting coach who said, I think your brain is too full in order for you to harness and grab onto some of the emotions necessary for some of these scenes acting. You need to meditate to clear the brain in order to be able to grab in your brain that emotion and bring it forward, which was completely the opposite of what I thought I had to do. I thought, okay, I need to play the stressed out mother, which I get an audition for all the time. My job is very stressful.
Yeah.
I know exactly how to be stressed because I'm stressed all the time. So if I have a stressful day at work, I'll say, okay, today's the day I'm going to do this tape because I'm already stressed and I can show it and it's real, genuine emotion. Yeah. Which it was not. I needed to clear the stress away using meditation in order to grab at stress and play it forward. I don't know if that makes any sense.
So do you find that it's made you, doing the meditation, has it made you a better actor? Because it makes you more present.
Yes, absolutely. I think because my logical brain is so overwhelmed with my job as a doctor,
yes,
it has been something that I've needed to make a priority in order to switch my focus into acting if I ever need to. Kind of turn doctor off, turn actor on, even if I'm playing a doctor.
Yeah.
Turn the
Well, because
actual
you're
one off.
science, right? Like you're science
Yeah.
based, so you're logical thinking. So it's like all of a sudden, like with the acting, I'm sure it's like connecting more to your heart, right? And like, what does this feel like? What would this
Yeah.
character feel instead of what would this character think? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think you're 100% correct. And I think it's the emotions are there. So it's not like I need to be continuing that emotion all day long. It's there. I just need
Yes.
to calm down and
Yeah.
then be able to turn it on. It's always there
Yes.
because I have the life experience of it. That's not going to go away. So
Yes.
yeah, it's been very interesting, and I think I wish I'd learned more about it in my science degrees. Moving through
Yes.
stuff like that. I think most people who come from a logical, sciencey brained background, could really benefit from something like that.
Well, but I also think to your, is that meditation, I think that there is this idea that we had to sit and be still. And meditation, that yes, you can do it that way, but meditation can also be, because I know you're into physical fitness too. Meditation can also be going for a run, right? It can
Yes.
be yoga, it can be walking. It's anything where you come into your body and you connect to it. And I think that there's this idea that we have to close down, like have no thoughts, and
Yeah.
that's no,
Yeah.
you know.
And
So
I think that was a tough thing for me to learn. Not tough, but it was a surprising thing for me to learn when I come from a logical brain saying this is
yes,
the right way to do things. This is the wrong way to do things. That's what
yes,
medicine is. Right, wrong, black, white, follow the algorithm. So for
yes,
me, yeah, meditation was, I have thoughts coming into my brain. I'm doing it wrong. Just stop. Stop. You're not
yeah,
doing it right.
yeah,
Not true. Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting. Something that I really like that you do is your Sundari Women. I am not quite at that great wiseness and maturity yet. I'm very close. But I resonated with, looking at the book and reading interviews with some of the women who you've had who are in that book, who, like me, came into acting or came into something later on in life with the fear that they had already aged out of this industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you do such a great job of celebrating that with Sundari Women. Do you have any advice or just general thoughts about that? That fear of, here in North America, we're not allowed to age, especially as women. In
Yeah.
other parts of the world, it's celebrated. Like you look at a BBC comedy and it's just
Yeah.
celebrated. And then coming into that, having, I know me personally, had a couple people say, well, you're almost 40. Sorry, you're going to be really limited in what people have for auditions. Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's really challenging. I think in your industry specifically. I think it slowly is changing. But I think it starts with us. Like I think that women that we have to. I mean, the Sundari Women for me was as I was aging and I was approaching 50. I would I was looking for people that I looked at and go, okay, I want to age like that, and felt empowered by. So when you look at someone like, to me, like Lauren Hutton, who, she's in her 70s, she's done no work. And even if people choose to do work, that's okay. I try not to go down that rabbit hole. But I think that we need to see more mature actors. I think that we need to see more mature women in print ads, all that sort of stuff, so that we are represented and that we feel good about aging, right? And it's not easy. It's not easy getting older, not only like the physical, how we look, but just, what goes on with our bodies. But I think if we can see more women aging in film and TV, then it gives us permission to also. So when you have certain women that are, like look at Kate Winslet. Like when she did Mare of Easttown, like she blew me away. And there was a scene where in a love scene that she had, and the director said, we could edit that out because I think she had like a roll of fat over her jeans. And she was like, no, like that's my body.
Yeah.
Don't you dare touch it. And I think that's really important. I think that we have to be more authentic.
Yeah, Absolutely. And I don't know who, I know you're saying it starts with us. It truly does. I think
Yeah.
what I struggle with, and I think this comes from the media, is this weird feeling of be confident, but don't have an ego. Like it's this weird kind of balance. I don't know if it's balance is the right word, but you know what I mean? Like there's this push of being like, yes, confidence women, but like not too confident because you don't want to be an ego or a narcissist or anything like that. Like shut down the ego is kind of the thing that you see on, self-care and wellness websites, which I think as women, I'm like, I don't really have an ego to shut down because I think as women growing up, we were told,
totally.
No ego. What ego? Yeah.
And do they say that to men?
No,
like
exactly,
that would, right?
Exactly.
Is it women more like when women, like, we step into our power and it's like, oh, we're difficult or we're being, right? So, but I think that, I think there's nothing more sexy and incredible than a woman who's confident and owns who she is. And my thing is like, if you have a problem with that, then that's your problem, right?
Yeah,
and I don't think that
absolutely.
women should dummy themselves down or not step into their power because it's making other people uncomfortable. Like that's their problem. They have to learn to shift out of that, not you.
Has there been anything that surprised you about your job or the entertainment industry as a whole?
I think surprised me. I mean, I really love what I do still. Like I've been doing, this year will be my 30th year of shooting. So in April, it'll be 30 years. I'm trying to figure out how I can celebrate that.
Yeah. What is that? What's the anniversary? What is that?
It's April. I don't know the exact date, but I know it was April when I started. So
wonderful.
I have to figure out what I'm going to do.
Yes.
I think that, you know what? How supportive actors are of each other, but also myself too. And, it's an industry where it's hard. It can be cutthroat, but yet I find that actors, like I know you're friends with some actors, and when you post something, they're like, good for you, go for it. I'm so happy for you. And I think that's really, I love that. Because it's really, and especially it's hard because you might have gone out for that same role.
Yeah.
And for you to have that grace to go like, okay, I didn't get it, but I'm so glad that Janet got it. Yeah. I mean, I think that's really incredible. And I don't know if in a lot of professions that's there.
Yeah. I think you're right. That was a big surprise for me as well, too, was, I'm sure it exists. The cutthroatness, of course it does. Like deep-seated in our brains, there's always a little bit of that jealousy, evil thing there. But I think especially in Canada, when there's so many actors vying for so few roles, we have to support each other, especially as Canadian actors, saying, yes, when one of us, what is the great Schitt's Creek quote, when one of us shines, all of us shine. I think that's so important. And we have to support each other. We have to. Yeah, absolutely.
And not to be, we're all freelance artists. So I think I think the bit of wisdom that I have learned from doing this is when I first started, like for the first few years, like you have times where you're like really, really busy and then all of a sudden it stops and you're like, did I do something wrong? Am I not like, does nobody like my work anymore? And I think actors go through that same thing. And I think that what happens with freelance artists is that you realize that's just the nature of the business, and there are times where I know that I'm the flavor of the month, and then I know it will be like Denise Grant or Tim Lee's, and that's great, and it'll come back again. But just realizing like, okay, it's not anything I'm doing, it's just the nature of the business. And I think that's for actors too, right? Because you could book like, 3 things, and then all of a sudden you don't book something for 3 months, and you're like, what did I do? And you didn't do anything. It's just the business, right? And just sort of trusting yourself and not second guessing yourself, and use that time creatively. Like, okay, I'm not working right now, so I'm going to take classes. For me, like with shooting, I'm a little slow right now, so I'm going to work on my running, or I'm going to work on another project, or I'm going to make some backdrops or something, right? So when you do have those slow periods, try to use it creatively so that you're still lifting up your energy, so that when that work does come, you're ready for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you are the product, that is very, very vulnerable when you're not
Yes.
getting what you were expecting, or
Yeah.
that momentum isn't flowing, because it's literally you as a human being. It's not, you are it. Yeah.
I don't know how you guys do it. Like, honestly, I did one audition. A girlfriend of mine is an agent, and she asked me to go on this audition. I was like, no, no. And she goes, well, if you get it, it's $10,000. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I went and I left there. I was trembling. Like, I just felt like I lost my voice. Like, I couldn't, like, my voice got really small and stuck here.
Yeah.
And the where I went, they were very sort of, when I walked in, I was like, hi. And they said, oh, you can just have a seat over there. And I was like, oh, like, it was kind of a little bit rude, I felt. But I remember just thinking, I don't know how you guys put yourself out there like this. It's really, really challenging.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing that I have found I have to overcome is constant rejection. Constant. Especially for me, and this is a little kind of narcissistic, but
Yeah.
thinking about myself, from someone like myself who has generally gotten accepted.
Yes.
You know, university, grad school, accepted to medical school, accepted to things, you know, passed my driver's test. You know, there haven't been many failures in my very privileged life.
Yeah.
To go from that to constant rejection was tough, totally, but there's no way I could have done it if I hadn't gone through medical school or my first kind of act. If I was a 20 something getting constantly rejected as we do in this industry, there's no way I could have done it.
So what did you learn then? Because I mean, you're a doctor, and you're used to, like, right? Like, you are, right? So, and then all of a sudden being like, what did that bring up? Like, what did you learn from that?
Yeah, well, I think it's resiliency for sure.
Okay.
And resiliency that came through the medical training process, which is designed to completely break you down in every way, shape, or form. And it's that sounds very dramatic, but I think it is resiliency, but also knowing that I do have a backup plan.
Yes.
And that was done on purpose, because I
Yes.
know myself, and I've been through immense amounts of therapy to know myself. And so I know I have a backup plan. So every day that I don't get an audition is not a failure. It's just another day that goes on.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that comes from the resiliency that has been built up since training, medical training.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But how wonderful too that at, this place in your life that you get to be vulnerable and step out of your comfort zone and grow again and discover more. Like, that's really exciting. Not a lot of people have the courage to do that.
It is really exciting. It's terrifying because of that exact reason, because logical brain doesn't like being emotional.
Yeah.
Logical brain has been taught, don't show emotion, especially in your line of work as a woman in a very male-dominated field. The last thing you want to do is show emotion. And then to be able to try and break that down, to do that in front of people, it's been very interesting. It's been a ton of fun. I was not expecting it to be as fun as it is.
And then the relationships that you make too, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the favorite thing of my work, is that I've created, like, I look at my friends circle, I've created all these incredible relationships, and it's just, it's so wonderful.
Yeah. And people who I never would have met if I hadn't done this, right? Because of a very insular little medical bubble. But it's interesting, especially with the pandemic, all these people, I've never met them in person. Just met them over Zoom in an acting class. I've never seen their legs. I've just seen them from here. But you just feel so connected to these people because you've been put in a vulnerable position and they've seen your vulnerability, and they relate to it for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell me about actors. Just in your experience, like, what are they like? Tell me, like, you see them day in and day out, and you've seen the top elite to the just starting out me's of the world.
I mean, I love actors, right? Like, you guys are just so, you're just so open and honest and vulnerable. Like, it's just, I mean, I think, obviously every actor is different. I used to, before I met my husband, I dated a couple of actors. So I do have a draw to actors. I do like them because you're just like fun and creative and all that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I think that and I think again, because I'm a freelance artist too, I get it. Like I get that, I have like, I could photograph you and then, your next session, you go to another photographer and you feel that like, oh, why didn't they shoot with me again? And then you have to kind of go, oh, well, maybe they needed something different and that's okay. And right. And I think that there's that, that vulnerability, I think that I really like, and the honesty about it. What I love about actors is that they're very honest about it. Like, yeah, I'm working. And then when they're not, they're like, yeah, I'm not working right now. It's really hard. So, they're trying to figure things out. And I find most actors are pretty honest with what they're going through, what they're doing. I mean, you get the odd one where it's like they're talk about themselves all the time, but whatever, right?
Yeah. Do you have any advice for anyone who's considering switching careers either into acting or into what you do, into the more creative realm?
I think that if you feel that you need that change or that shift, I think start to explore it, right? Like if you're an actor, don't quit your job, right? But go take some acting classes. See if it's what you think it is. And the same thing if somebody wants to get into photography, go buy a camera. What is it about photography that you like? Is it doing portraits? Is it landscape? Is it wildlife? And just sort of explore it, right? And I'm a big believer that we have dreams and desires for a reason. And the universe is hoping that you say yes. Because it might not be like maybe you get into acting and maybe it's not what you thought it was, but maybe it leads you to writing or maybe directing or maybe the love of your life. But if you didn't follow that initial spark, you never would have found that. So if that spark is there, I would say have the courage to follow it.
Love that. That's so great.
Yeah.
From a more of a practical headshot photographer advice standpoint, as someone who, again, started out in this career later on in life and was bombarded with advice, good and bad.
Yeah.
This is a long lead up to my question, but I was told you have to get headshots that look like this, by this person, like this. These are the people who are the best. Casting directors don't like A, B, C, D, E. And it was just, and I found, and maybe this is wrong, but also I don't care. I kind of shut all that advice away because it was so overwhelming. And I said, I want to shoot with Helen always because you make me feel comfortable. And it's not like I'd been told, oh, don't shoot with Helen. It's always Helen is amazing. But I think we are so bombarded, especially as beginner actors, and with advice about who to go to, where to go, outfits to wear, types to be. Yeah. What's my question? It's more of a comment on that industry. And I was just like, oh, I don't care what anyone says. I just want this.
It's really tricky because it's also, you could have an agent who says, oh, you should shoot with Helen. She's great. Then you have another agent who goes, oh, actually, we prefer this photographer, right? Or you have someone who goes, oh, Denise Grant is amazing, which she is, right? But then another photographer says, no, that's not my style, or another art. So I think that, so if you're just starting out and you don't have an agent yet, I would say trust your gut, sort of go on, look at websites. You can always have a consultation with different photographers and see who you feel the best with. Because it's like you and I could date the same guy but have a completely different experience. And it's the same with agents and it's the same with photographers. So you have to make sure that, and I think what you said, you have to be comfortable. Because if you're not comfortable, I think that affects your photos. And then if you have an agent, they're your agent, right? So if they say this is a photographer that we like, I mean, I don't think agents will never say, oh, unless it's a really bad photographer, like don't use that photographer. And I think that there's sort of like a list of 5 of us that are usually on that list. And you can't go wrong with, you can't go wrong with me, Denise, Tim Lees, like you've got, I think personally, but I think that again, you have to trust your gut about who you feel the most comfortable with. And it's the same for acting classes. Right? It's the same thing. Like you can have, you can have a great acting teacher and you have an amazing experience, but somebody else didn't. So you just sort of have to trust your instinct and honor it. And you're not going to make everybody happy. Right?
Yes.
And everybody in this industry wants to give advice.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Right?
Free and for money. Yeah. So it's overwhelming. Yeah. That's great. That's great advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a crazy, funny, or memorable moment from your career?
I think, you know what, I've met and photographed some pretty incredible people.
Yeah.
I think, okay, you know what? One of my favorite things, I'm just trying, my mind has gone blank on his name. Colin Wilkinson. So he played Jean Valjean in Les Mis.
Yeah.
And so I photographed him a couple of times. But the first time I photographed him, I had said, when I went to see his show, I had to leave after the second act because you should have been there. Somebody had a heart attack behind us.
Oh,
so all these paramedics came in and they took him out. And I just was like, I don't want to stay here. Like I was really kind of felt uncomfortable. And so he said, oh, so you didn't see the second half of the show and you didn't see this number, like bring him home. Right. And I said, no. And he goes, okay. And he went and he got a chair and he said, have a seat. And I sat in the chair and he sang it to me. Just me. And I remember I'm getting teary-eyed now. Like I had goosebumps. Like I was just like, oh my God. Like it was just, I mean, he's unbelievable.
Yes.
That voice, everything. I just love him.
Wow.
So that was pretty special. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just getting chills thinking of that. That's incredible. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything now in this frigid January COVID lockdown, whatever we're in, is there anything right now that's getting you excited, that you're looking forward to, that's kind of pumping you up these days?
I think like everybody, I'm looking for it. I don't know what, you're a doctor. I don't know what the heck's going on with COVID.
Neither do I.
I'm hoping, I feel this like, we're all like this. There's this push-pull, right? So you just get started and get momentum and then, it's done again, right? So I think what I look forward to, that for myself and for others, that we can just keep moving forward and that we can keep expanding without lockdowns and without restrictions. And I know that this might be the new norm and just that we have to find a way to live with it. But I just feel so many of us are just finding it challenging, because every time we get excited about something, it's like, oh no, now you can't do that. Right?
Yeah.
So I think I'm looking forward to things opening up so that everybody can start to feel better about themselves, because I think a lot of people are struggling,
Yeah. Struggling, and I think the lack of community I find really hard. And I think a lot of people aren't aware of how important it was for them. And then when it's taken away, they're like, oh my gosh, I miss it. From something as small as aquafit classes to all the way up to just community hugging, to, their community as a whole, as a nation, right?
Yeah.
It's just, everyone's very me these days, and because you have to be. It's kind of that survival weird instinct right now. Yeah.
And we're stuck in our heads a lot, right?
Yes. Well, because there's nowhere else to be. I'm either stuck in my head or I'm stuck in my kitchen. Like there's nowhere else for me to go.
Yeah.
What would you say your either parents, loved ones, guardians, whoever is in your life, how would they describe what you do for a living? How do you think they describe your career?
I think that they would describe it as, I don't know how they would describe that I'm a photographer, but more that I think that they would say that how fortunate I am that I love what I do so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's great. Is there anything you want to promote?
No, I mean, I have, my photography also, but I also have my own podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention.
And so no, that's okay. And so that is called The Feminine Warrior. And I'm doing it with my dear friend, Diane Wiseman, and we co-host it together. And it's, I would say it's 95% women. And it's just sort of sharing our stories and sharing our journeys, and also looking at the parts that weren't easy, because those are actually the parts where we get to learn and grow the most. And so, so I'm really enjoying that. It's a fun creative outlet, and just trying to, as you're doing, trying to raise the voice of women. Specifically, ours is raising the voice of women. But that's a lot of fun to do.
Oh, that's fantastic. Awesome.
Yeah, we'll have to have you on it as the doctor.
Oh, sure.
Doctor/actress.
Doctor/actress. No pressure.
No pressure.
No pressure on both accounts, right? Thank you, everyone, for tuning in this week. And thank you, Helen. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know how in demand you are. Justifiably so. You're the best. And thank you for the incredible photos you've taken of me over the last couple years. Everyone, if you need headshots taken, Helen Tansey is the best. I have no financial gains. I make no financial gains from recommending Helen. She's just the best. She makes me feel the most comfortable and the most confident in front of the camera. She's the only one I will let steal parts of my soul, aka take photos of me. Everyone check out Helen Tansey's website for obviously her headshot photos, but her incredible Sundari Women project, and check out her podcast, The Feminine Warrior. All the links to the podcast and her website are in the show notes below. And I hope you'll tune in next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye!